When I was a little girl singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to make a difference in this world. So I never said, boy, when I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. I was on the streets using drugs for 6 years and homeless all the time. But I was also trafficked. And when I was trafficked, sometimes I did have a roof over my head. I never in my wildest dreams ever thought that I would end up on the streets of Cleveland. And she honed in on all of my unmet emotional and psychological needs. What I thought we were doing was we were going to rent an apartment together, and I was going to go back to school to Case Western Reserve and work on my studies and continue to work. And she would look for work, and we would raise our children and, you know, help each other out financially as single parents. She didn't get a job, and she would be gone hours at a time with my car and leave me without food or diapers for her kids or anything. And then it became days that she would be gone and I would be stuck. Sometimes she would spend a lot of time in the bathroom. One day, she invites me into the bathroom. We close the door. So I'm sitting on the edge of the tub, and she has this apparatus. It's a glass stem. There's something dark at one end. She takes a hit off of it, and all this smoke is exhaled. And the addict in me was very curious, and she said, try this. So I did, really without any hesitation, and I was instantly addicted and wanted more and more and more and more. And what I now know was her plan was to get me addicted to crack, and she pimped me. And as long as we had the apartment, she would handcuff me to bed frame and bring men in constantly. You know, after I started using the crack, of course, I had to leave school. I lost my job, lost my car, lost my apartment, and my children all within 1 month's period of time. I went through this shock period where, like I said, I'm thinking, what the fuck happened? How the hell did you end up in this situation? And then after that, we were literally sleeping on concrete and in doorways and front stoops. And she had me out there working the streets on the west side of Cleveland. When I was first taught how to work the streets, I was trained by a transsexual. And she told me, she said, Linda, there's 3 P's when it comes to working in the streets: paid, poise, and personality. And that will get you the most money. But you always get paid first, always. And don't ever get in a car with more than one man. Don't get in a car with a black man, because he'll want to make you his girlfriend. And don't ever get in vans. I don't know how many people have ever been in a position where they are absolutely, totally, emotionally and psychologically know they are going to die. this one night, I got into a car with a single guy, and he turns around the block where I tell him to turn. And all of a sudden, my passenger door opens, and two guys get in, and they force me into the back seat. And I put up a struggle, but they got me back there. I mean, this is two guys. And the driver takes off. And I remember as I was being held down on the back seat, while one of them was having his way with me, I remember looking up at the streetlights and the architecture of the tops of the buildings, counting the streetlights, thinking that if I get out of this alive, maybe that will help me find my way back. But I had totally resigned myself to the fact that I'm going to die tonight. I mean, these were three guys, three big guys. And they had firearms. But I remembered laying there on the back seat thinking, okay, God, you know, hey, if this is how you want me to go, you know, just do it. Just get it over with. And they stopped and they pulled up in this secluded area by a double-door garage. And they pull in and put the garage doors down. And the guy that was having his way with me on the way to the garage, another one jumps in the back seat to have his way with me. So when this other guy jumped in the back seat and the other two were standing outside of the car, I took my leather biker's cap off, and of course I had all these bald spots all over my head, and I said, look, Jack, I have a life-threatening disease. Now, do you really want to have sex with me? And after a little negotiation and my putting some fear into this guy, thinking, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with her? They let me out of the car. And as soon as I get out of the car, I start running. But there's no houses or buildings around. It's just all field. There's not even any trees I can hide behind. And I hear bullets. I hear them go whizzing by me. Oh my God, you know, I don't know if either of you have had a dream where you're running so fast and you want to get away so bad, but your feet and legs feel like they just weigh a ton, and you're like moving in slow motion and you just can't get away fast enough. Well, they were bad shots, thank God, or he had no intention for me to die that night, because I didn't. And I ended up being able to walk back to the familiar area. There's a hierarchy within street-level prostitution. And back in the day, the lowest of the low of the hierarchy was called a strawberry. And this was an individual that would turn tricks with a dope man in exchange for dope. At the other end was a good hoe. And I was considered a good hoe because I could stack money. And what that means is that I didn't go get $20 and bring it back and go get another $20 and bring it back. I was able to accumulate some money in a certain period of time. That was the first time in my life that I ever felt any respect from my peers, any recognition for being good at anything. Sad to say, but it's true. lo and behold, he puts me on the circuit. And back then, the circuit was Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and ultimately New York City. And in each of those locations, there were already men and bottom girls in place, so that when he got me on the Greyhound to go to Pittsburgh, there were already people there waiting at the bus stop to keep control of this whole setup. I was raped one day in a stairwell of an apartment building. And one had a gun to my head and the other had a knife to my throat. And they made me strip, completely strip. And there was an Asian couple with a little girl going up the side steps. And when I saw them, I so much wanted to cry out and say, help me, help me, help me. But when I saw this little girl, I couldn't do it. I didn't want her to see what was going on. I never screamed out for help, ever. Only one time did I say stop. I was on a bed, and the Rastafarian sat across from me, and he had a revolver. He pulled his chair up next to me, and he was caressing the barrel of this revolver like a man would caress a woman during intimacy. And he's loading it one by one, putting the bullets in the chamber. And eventually, he pulls his chair up closer, and he puts the end of the barrel right here. And the only time I ever advocated for myself was then, and I said, go ahead, motherfucker. Because not only do I want my DNA all over this motherfucking room, wherever I go after you pull that trigger has got to be a hell of a lot better than where I am right now. But I also ended up setting that trafficker up. And what I found out later from the police was that he was wanted in New York City because he'd murdered a police officer. There was a pastor of a church that I used to go to almost every morning because he had coffee and donuts. Sometimes that was the only food I would eat. You know, I was going there for a while, and sometimes I'd spend some time there sitting on a couch and reading. And he struck up a conversation with me one day, and over time, we became friends. He never preached to me. He never quoted scripture. He never told me I needed to read the Bible, and if all I needed to do was believe in Jesus Christ and I would be healed and transformed. Never, ever, ever did he say that to me. The only thing that he really said to me one time that has stuck with me over the years is that, Linda, I think Jesus would have really liked to have hung out with you. I can remember thinking, what? Jesus want to hang out with me? You know? Yeah. And at that point in my life, that was probably the nicest, kindest, gentlest, generous thing anyone had ever told me about myself in my entire life. And I was probably 37, 38 years old. One day, he took me to lunch to a nearby delicatessen. And as we were finishing up our meal, he said, Linda, you see that phone over there? I looked out the window and I said, yeah. And he said, how about if we go out there and you make a phone call to Rosary Hall? Well, Rosary Hall was a detox and 2-week treatment program. You know, I didn't want to, and I knew that if I didn't come back, I'd be hunted down, or worse. But these two people I had respect for. I was grateful to the risks that they took to find me and talk to me. And they were so kind. I couldn't say no to either one of them. I just couldn't. So I said, okay. So we went out to the phone. I made a call to Rosary Hall, and the person on the other end says, we don't have any bed available now, but if you call back next week, we might have a discharge. A couple weeks pass, and I do manage to call every week and spend a quarter. And one day they said, okay, I'll be here at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon and we'll do your intake. So just like any other addict, when they see that their addiction is going to come to an end, I'm thinking, well, I've got to get one last hurrah in. You know, I've got to absolutely go into this hospital absolutely blown away and high, because there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. You know, and I'm just going to get just so high, I don't know what to do with myself. Well, I was doing that, and 4 o'clock passes, many hours go by. And I'm thinking, well, that's not going to happen. The next day, I walked to Rosary Hall. And as I was walking to Rosary Hall, I had to cross a bridge over an underpass. I crawled up on the railing, and I looked down at the cars passing, whizzing by, and I was going to jump. And I played with it a little bit. I would sway, you know, not really committing to it, but I was getting ready to commit to it. All of a sudden I heard, Linda, you're not supposed to jump, but you're supposed to throw your paraphernalia over the bridge. I now know that that was God. And I proceeded to walk to Rosary Hall, and it just so happened that they had a bed. And I did an intake, and that's what started on the path to getting out and recovery. I don't think we have a heroin epidemic problem. I don't think we have an addiction problem. I don't think we have a homeless problem. I think we have a social problem. And I don't think until we start to consider very seriously how to address our social problems together is any of this other crap going to be taken care of. I lived here in Patterson Township. We moved in 2007. It's always been put on my heart that I was kept alive to do what I do. The project 3MP is designed to do many things. The specific thing that I do is street outreach. That's what I started out doing, and I was giving out bags of toiletries to those who I identified to be persons involved in prostitution. Because there are signals, there is body language, there are nuances where men that pay for sex know to pick up on.
What's your name?
My name's Linda.
Are you like from a church or something?
No, I used to be in the streets, and so now that I'm out for many years, I created a project that helps people where I was. I was giving out clothing, and I just became a consistent face to people because I knew that a lot of them were going to think I was the police. So staying consistent helped me to become involved. And the men and women that I would speak to each time would spend more and more time speaking with me and telling me a little bit more about their story.
When my boyfriend threw me out, you know what I mean, I relapsed and went back into using and stuff because I was out here on the streets, not knowing, you know, not where to go and things of that nature. So, but I don't want to be like this. I want to be clean and have a stable roof over my head, you know, not waking up sick, and just get clean, be right, you know, and try to start a life for myself. It's horrible. It's horrible. And, you know, doing drugs, you know, heroin, trying to get clean, and it's really hard. It's really hard. And when you have nobody to help you, and just everybody turns their back on you, thinking you're a horrible person when you just need a little bit of help, you can go straight down to the next stop sign.
Well, you have someone now.
Huh?
That's me. You have someone to help you now.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Because it's so hard. It's so hard. Like, and then I'm out here by myself, you know what I mean? Jumping from place to place, not sure where I'm going to go that night, or if I'm going to have a roof over my head to stay. You can make this right.
My mission is basically very simple. It's to help when others cannot or will not or do not, or they don't know how to. People on the street that find themselves living there day by day are broken long before they end up on the street. So to help an individual, I have to get involved in their life to find out what's going on, what happened, and what's happening now, and what they would like to see in the future. Where I'm taking you to now, are you going to be safe?
Yeah, I'll be safe. I'll be safe. So, I mean, until I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. Right here.
Right here?
Mm-hmm. I appreciate this so much, and what you're doing is like awesome, because people need people out here, you know, because there's so many people out here with no place to go, and the only thing they have for women is the women's shelter, but they have this shelter down here for men. A lot of women out here, and they got to do so many things just to survive, you know what I mean? It's really hard.
There's PhDs walking around out there. There's people with master's degrees. There's people out there walking around and sleeping in cubby holes that have had years and years experience in specialized fields, doctors, lawyers, all sorts of professions. And to hear their stories and the reason they're sleeping on somebody's back stoop is so interesting to me and so sad at the same time. It can happen to anyone. No one is immune to being homeless and on the street.
Back in 1999, I told you I was a state certified CDL instructor and instructor coordinator for RJ Roads. I was walking into work one morning, fell on the ice, and I broke my neck, this C3 to the T1, and was put on various different medications, most of it being 80 milligram of Oxycontin 4 times a day, with a 100 milligram fentanyl patch every other day, 800 milligram fentanyl lollipop, and 5 milligram Oxy-IR for almost 7 years, and then was taken off cold turkey. I didn't know anything about street drugs. I didn't mess with them. Didn't know what dope sick was, withdrawals. I lost my gallbladder. 68% of my liver was destroyed. You know, thank God, knock on wood, I don't have hep C. I rejuvenated my liver, and it led to that. And then not being able they shut you off. You become doctor addicted, the doctors take the medicines away, and now you're on the streets trying to find, you know, at that time to buy a pill on the street was $50, $60 versus a $10 bag. I was scared to death of the word heroin, and I snorted it. And I thought, oh my God, this is heaven. All the pain went away. This was like, okay, and that's what it is Oxycontin was a synthetic heroin. And started learning about, you know, different things, but now I'm hooked. I'm addicted, and the cycle just keeps going. So, you know, and it's ugly. It's not a pretty picture.
It's probably the most visible, invisible person on this earth. It's lonely. You feel ashamed and guilt beyond what normal people feel because of the things that you do to make money to buy your drug.
For a female, you can imagine what you have to do to get money, okay? You know, you're degrading yourself, you know, lowering your self-esteem to jump in and out of cars to get $20, $30. You know, and it's just not to support your addiction, but it's also to survive. You need to eat.
Most people out in the streets don't have anybody to just be there, to talk to cry with, to hold hands with, to hug, to, you know, just validate their feelings. It's so important that they're validated as opposed to, well, you shouldn't feel that way, or you don't have to feel that way because you can go here and you can go there, and they'll help you with this and they'll help you with that. And that's, in reality, that's not the way it is.
Linda works with the misfits. She has kept up with me, and I have no idea how. And she answers 24/7. She'll help anyone, even if it's someone that's not necessarily in their own corner, wanting to help themselves. Linda's there.
Linda and a few other ladies always coming around making sure that certain ones have their clothes, or Linda is looking out for health issues, making sure you're safe, and if you're going to do drugs, have clean needles. If you're going to be out here performing sex acts, having the proper protections and stuff.
Prostitution and trafficking are experiences. They are not states of being. And when I do trainings and things like that, that's something that it's very important to me that I convey to the audience, just to help them start thinking differently about people that they see walking down the street and they point to and they say, she's out here because she wants to be out here. And that choice actually is just an illusion.
Being a female out here, you may not even be doing nothing. And when I first came to Beaver Falls back in 2007, I was homeless and on the streets, but I was labeled immediately. Fresh meat. It don't work like that. You know, don't label me. I'm not a prostitute. I'm not a working girl. I'm trying to survive. You know, we need more programs. And I don't mean AA or NA.
There is major need for help, and there is no help.
There's no help.
There's not one program that does it or does it all, or they do one piece and then there's this other piece that there isn't that piece, and there's no help.
There needs to be a place where someone can come and say, I need help. The streets are more welcoming back. You know what I mean? They'll welcome them back. We don't have good people welcoming people who need help. You know? He's a good boy. But
it's been a really tired journey.
There has to be something more within our communities to help, especially for the women. If you're not abused or have children, you get nothing. So you're out here on the streets and it's not easy. I don't condone anybody for what they do. You know, somewhere or some way, we all have an addiction. Cigarettes, food, sex, drugs, somehow we've got an addiction.
In traditional drug and alcohol field, activities such as prostitution, when I was going through it, and still to a degree, is considered a severe consequence down the slippery slope ladder of addiction. And they treat it as, look where it took you, see where you ended up. But now the human trafficking movement is causing individuals in drug and alcohol, prisons, jails, all over the place to take another look at, it's not just a consequence. These individuals are victims, and they have been forced, brought in, and coerced into doing the things that they did. They don't know it, because most of them don't consider themselves being trafficked or prostituted. They're just out there because they're trying to support a habit. The change in attitude toward victims has really propelled the movement to go farther than what it might have perhaps without their change in attitude. They're more willing to understand the complexities of the issues that these people who they want off their streets have, and how difficult and how much time it takes to bring a person to leave a street corner.